The Business Simplicity Podcast, where leaders share their most successful strategies and the failures that inspired them, so business owners and managers can avoid the suffering and reap the benefits. With your host, Chris Parker.
And welcome back to the Business Simplicity Podcast. This is Chris Parker, and I'm having a conversation with Mike Keading, the CEO of Norhart. And this is going to be a fun one because Mike is in housing, like in apartments and houses, and has a really interesting mission around that to make housing affordable for people in the US and maybe around the world, and has some interesting things to learn. I'm going to unpack it about how he's managing his people and his company. It's fun for me because I'm usually in digital stuff, and Mike is in really tangible stuff, and so I hope we're gonna play around with that a little bit. Mike, thanks for joining. Can you kick us off with maybe a bit of introduction about yourself and really what is it that you yourself, what do you do?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm Mike, and I'm the CEO of Norhart. At the heart of it, we design, build, and rent apartments, but really we're focused on driving down the cost of housing. And we're already achieving about a 20 to 30% reduction in costs, but we think we can reach a 50% reduction in construction costs. But imagine what that means. It means someday your rent could be half, or your mortgage payment could be half. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you look at all these other industries like manufacturing. They've improved productivity by 760%. Agriculture improved it by 1,500%. But construction over the past 60 years has done essentially nothing. And so we're just applying the technologies and techniques that have revolutionized these other industries into construction and having a lot of success with it.
I've got to unpack that more as we go. About over 10 years ago, we went through the process of building our own house, which we're still in, and wow, that was a shockingly inefficient process. So I think we'll compare and contrast that. But before we get into that, why? Like why is this something that you're so passionate about and out there, and sharing and inspiring people about the possibilities on this? But why is this important to you personally?
Yeah. My dad died relatively young. It was definitely a surprise. It really reminded me how short life really is. I mean, if you look at it, we live about 5,000 weeks here on Earth. And every morning I wake up and I ask myself, how do I want to spend the minutes I have here on Earth? And for me, the big part of the answer to that question is I want to make a meaningful, positive impact in the world. That's like how I'm hardwired. That's who I am. That's what I want to do. And the impact that we can make is driving down the cost of housing. I mean, if you look at a person's typical expenditure in their life, it's like 30% of their costs are related to housing. And then especially if you look at the demographic changes in places like Europe, the United States, and Japan, our populations are getting older, right? So you have more people in retirement, less people working, and this machine, this economic environment that we have is becoming harder and harder for people long term. But if we can solve housing, if we can take that 30% of their budget down to 20% or 15%, that can have a meaningful impact on improving the lives of everyone. And that's what really motivates me.
How did you get into housing? You shared before we started, I think you're computer science, educated. So
yeah,
how did you get into that?
Yeah, I have a degree in computer science, a minor in mathematics, another minor in management. I completed almost enough coursework to do a major in finance and a minor in accounting. So yeah, why am I even here? Well, my parents started this business when I was young. Very small real estate company. We only had a handful of units early on. And I can remember days where the family outing was to go to the hardware store like a half an hour away, and we pick up all these supplies. We'd have 8 cartfuls of stuff, stick it into my dad's little trailer, then we pack it to the rim, way up to the sky, driving down the highway. It was maybe a little unsafe. but we would be working in these buildings together. And so that was a lot of my growing up. But then I went off to college and I wanted nothing to do with the family business. And deep down, the reason I didn't want anything to do with it is because I didn't want people to think it was given to me. So I really wrestled with my own ego through that. But deep down, what I always wanted to do and things I was working on at that time was to make a meaningful impact in the world. And so when I got past my own ego, I realized I could take this small company, start from there, and grow it to something that can have a meaningful impact. So that's how I got started.
Are you making that impact? Like, are you achieving that dream already, or?
Yeah. So we're already about 20 to 30% less in construction costs than other developers. And so today we're already having that impact. Now, the interesting dynamic is we don't necessarily offer cheaper rents right out of the gate. We still are market rate rents. Why? The reason is because we want to take that capital, that income that we make from that difference, and pour it into the machine that builds the buildings. And then as we scale up, as we grow, we want to kind of create an imbalance in supply and demand, provide so many units to the market that the price lowers for everyone in a sustainable way. If I just lowered rents on a few units today, yeah, it's good for a few units. It's not good for the nation. It's not good for the world. And so we're working toward that large perspective. And it's going to take us, quite a while to get there, but that's the journey that we're on.
Well, if we talk about moonshots and exponential impact, what percentage of reduction of rent across, let's keep it simple, the US, are you going for? So, like, by the time you retire, what kind of dent do you want to make into that? Have you thought about that?
50%. We want to drop it by 50%. Half.
50% in your lifetime.
Yes. I think it's totally doable. I think you could probably even do more than that.
All right. Unpack it for me. Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into this industry, but if you look at the past 60 years, it's been very, very stagnant. I mean, they've improved 10%, but compared to all these other industries, that's dismal. So what do? We take the technologies that other industries have used and apply it to our own. If you look at the world of construction, it is a world where people are stuck in their old ways. This is the way things have been done. This is what I'm okay with, what I'm used to, what I'm comfortable with. So that's what I'm sticking with. It's a very rough and tumble environment. So one of the first things we did, another thing in this industry is it's very siloed. The company that owns the building is different than the guy who designs it and develops it, who's different than the guy or company who coordinates the construction, who's different than the ones that are doing the construction, like plumbing, electrical, HVAC. So this is crazy. Let's bring all of this under one roof. So that was step one. Right there alone, improved efficiencies, because there's a lot of challenges that are bumping up against each other that people don't like. I've actually seen different contractors rip out work that another contractor did right out of the wall because they were just mad at them. It's that sort of thing you start solving. But then once you do that, you can start applying some pretty cool techniques. So manufacturing, they have an assembly line, right? And this has provided a lot of improvement over the years for manufacturing. For us, we take a look at our buildings now and we say, how do we apply that concept to construction? We take our building, break it into smaller sub-chunks. And in our case, it's basically a unit. So each unit is a different area. And then instead of moving the product past the people on the assembly line, we move the people through the building. And right now that cycle time, how often we move, is every 5 hours. So Toyota, they actually produce a car every 55 seconds. We're producing an apartment unit every 5 hours right now. And we think we can drive that down substantially less. But that's a concept that's unheard of. But that technique alone takes a project that's 15 months down to 9 months.
So by unit, if you're talking about an apartment building with, say, 20 units in it, and a unit is that family space, right? Is that what we're talking about? That has a couple bedrooms and a kitchen and.
Yep.
And you can finish the unit in 5 hours?
in 5 hours. Now, that's one coming off the line every 5 hours, right? So for a given unit, it might take a few weeks to go through that system. But yeah.
Outstanding. I know when we built here, well, the building methods are different in Europe. It's typically bricks, but there is some wood frame possibilities, and by bricks they have these giant white cinder blocks in the walls, like it's like building Legos and then they carve out stuff. It's really a different way. But because I was comfortable with the wood frame, we went to a prefab company up in the north of the Netherlands.
Yeah. And
they built all the modular chunks. And so literally they came with a crane. We have a 3-story house. And over 3 days it went and I parked my car down the street, and we made a slow motion video of it, or speed up video of it. And then they came in and they fitted it all out. But what I was surprised on was, like you mentioned, that there was just a shockingly poor attention to detail. Like we found some of the contractors just, using the 3 versions ago instructions. And
so true.
Like how do you solve the I guess the attention to detail quality? Because you've got construction worker humans coming in, and they need to do the right thing at the right time. How do you achieve that in a scalable way?
That's a great question. Couple of different things. One is we now have our own engineering and architectural team all in-house. And so they don't just think about the design of a particular building. They're actually designing sort of the factory or the system or the way we do work. And that's constantly evolving as they're improving it. But they one thing is just to make things as simple as humanly possible. The simpler the task, the less likely for error. So that's one technique. But probably the much more important technique, and probably the most important lesson I've ever learned, is hiring the very best people. We're kind of extreme with this. We literally have employees that work in different states and fly into work every single week and then fly home on the weekend. That's like a 3 or 4 hour flight for them. And we look for the very top echelon of quality people. And that changes the game because one, they care, so quality goes up, but it's far beyond that. They start inventing new ways to do things. They start opening doors that I didn't know could be unlocked. And it's so much fun working with a team of that kind of caliber.
I love it. I have your company values in front of me open up, but before we get into people and values and inspiration, motivation, development of people, you mentioned simple, and that's kind of a trigger word for me. I bite onto that. These engineers, I'm just curious, is there a mindset or method that they use to achieve simplicity, or is this just an innate in engineering reduction things, reduce things down to its most basic parts? Or is there is there a vision or a strategy on simplicity for you that you indoctrinate them with?
Yeah, a couple of different things. One is we have a continuous improvement area that I could talk more about. But for simplicity itself, we really think about it in 3 different components. The first is to eliminate, because it's shocking how much can be eliminated out of work that people don't even realize until they really think about it. An example, I was with some of the framers, 6 months ago, and they stood up a wall and they braced it off with a brace. Okay, good. Then they realized they had to sheet that wall, so they had to move the brace to the opposite side. Okay. Then they got to that next unit and realized that the brace was in the way of an interior wall. They had to move it again. And no joke, they still moved it in place of another interior wall. And so they moved it like 5 times. And I stopped the guys. I was like, guys, what are we doing here? Like, why are we moving this brace 5 times? They're like, oh, so they started measuring off the wall. Like, okay, what if we put the brace here every single time? We would eliminate that work. It's great. What was really cool is they came back the next morning and they're like, we huddled up and after work and kind of talked to this a little bit more. We realized if we change the way we do this, we don't even need that brace. Like, awesome. Yeah. Like all of this work and we can just eliminate it. So there's so much. There's so much that can just be eliminated if you rethink things through. But then once we do have a task that we have to do, then we do think about simplifying it. And so I don't know if there's any particular methodology that we use. Maybe you have some cool methodologies I can learn about. But they just simplify the work down. So it's like coming up with a tool that does this task much easier, or eliminating, moving the line in a way that makes it easier. But then the last stage, and probably my favorite, but it should always be the last stage, is automation. And so then they start looking at how do we automate tasks. So they have steel. We're into steel studs now, and so they produce all these steel studs, these machines. But there's a point that they had to weld the studs together. So they were always welding it by hand. And then, one day I come in and like, what's that? And like, we built a welding machine. So literally it brings in the studs in one end, welds it all up, and shoots it out the other. It was so cool.
I love it. I love it that that you start with the eliminate and the simplify and automate. Because in a lot of corporate environments, they start these digitization or automation programs, and I'm thinking, guys, you're just automating junk. You're automating a nightmare. You're just making a nightmare go faster. Why are you doing this? And I guess that not that it sounds like you need any advice, but it sounds like in that huddle, the team started thinking about what is the outcome, like what is the actual job to be done, and they were probably like, well, we just need that wall to stand still long enough to do something else to make it permanently stand still. And I imagine that maybe over a beer or something, they started thinking like, well, how can we solve that problem in a way which doesn't create other problems? So it's nice story. And in order to get those people to huddle up on their own afterwards and come back and have the courage, if you will, to say, hey, we think we can do this different. That is actually one of the values. So like I see on your website, improve every day is one of the values. Achieve great things, be a genuine human. Definitely want to unpack that one. Resident experience obsession, level yourself up. But this seems to be really in the area of the improve every day. And how do you keep that alive? Meaning it's very easy to say that continuous improvement. I think everyone says that, but in here, there's a case that you've actually demonstrated that. How do you inspire that? Yeah,
I'll get to a couple of tangible techniques that are interesting, but again, I think it starts with the people. You can't really do much without the right people. But not only that, like when we talk about achieving great things, one of the quotes that we use is we choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard, right? That tenacity that America had back then, I know there's space race was going on, but like, why did we go to the moon? Is because going to the moon is just freaking awesome to say we went to the moon, right? It's so cool. And so the right people have that, like that innate passion and drive to grow and improve. And you mentioned the level yourself up. We have teams who do after work classes not put on by the company. They do it themselves because they want to learn and grow and improve what they're doing. And so when you get that kind of those kind of people, they have the innate passion and desire to make that kind of change and impact. One of the techniques, and probably the most powerful one that we've found, is that all of our teams produce what we call a lean video every single week. And so this is something little that they improved that week. They put together in a little video. And then on Fridays, they show off that video to the entire team. And there's cheering and excitement. And there's like an award that goes out. And then people like cross-pollinate ideas. It's probably one of my favorite events every week. But that was one of the most useful techniques we had to keeping that alive.
Wow. So a lean video, as in lean thinking, as in waste reduction, waste removal.
Lean manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And every person makes a video, or is it team?
Every team. So plumbers are a team, electricians are a team, carpenters are a team.
What's your favorite video you ever saw?
It's a bit hard it's better to watch it than for me to describe it. But one of my favorites was really simple. They had this pot outside that was just a total disaster. And they just went in one day and cleaned it. They saved themselves just a couple of minutes each day, not having to go through that pod. But the way they started off the video is you walked up to the pod, the viewer, the camera. There's two of the guys were there standing like bodyguards. And then they handed their license to the bodyguards and they looked at it and like, okay, you're good. They opened it up and then the team members were inside the pod, like celebrating. It was like a little party going on in the pod. And then they showed off the pod. So this is one of my favorite. Another one is almost a brand new employee, very, very new in the company, came up with an idea of how to deal with steel coils, but it was so good that we patented it, right? That's the kind of people I love, is like the first few weeks of being here, you come up with an idea that we patent.
Well, Mike, it seems like you're cheating a little bit. Meaning you have these values and stuff, but you're cheating because it sounds like you're hiring people that already are naturally exhibiting these values. And
yes,
it makes
absolutely.
your job, it seems like it makes your job unfairly too easy.
Exactly. I don't know how else to do it than hire the people that exhibit the values.
Yeah.
So we're really extreme with that. I mean, it's tens of thousands, if not even hundreds of thousands of applicants these days. And we only hire hundreds. But in our recruiting team now is about 5 or 10% of our company. We pour a ton of energy into the hiring process and the evaluation process so we can find the right people. And even when we do, for most jobs, not all, for most jobs, we actually do a trial period. So they come and work with us for a few weeks. They'll get paid. But by the end of that period, there's a point where all of their coworkers do a review on that team member. And the coworkers go through the values and they ask, is this person like a hell yeah in every single one of the categories? If not, then they don't move forward with them. But I love that because the team then becomes self-policing because they want to work with people that are as good as they are. They don't want to put up with anything less. And so they don't.
So don't want to put up with anyone less. One of your values is be a genuine human. I guess 2 questions on that. And I know in podcast land, you're not supposed to ask 2 questions at once, but still. What is a non-genuine human, and what do you do with these non-genuine humans that you might accidentally find in your organization? Like how do you measure genuineness, and how do you know? And if someone is just untreatably ungenuine, what happens?
Yeah. So for each one of these values, we have 5 subpoints that illuminates it better. But probably the most important subpoint here is that we're respectful, we're open, we're honest, we're vulnerable. And so those are the kinds of characteristics we look for in a genuine human. In the world of construction, it's stereotypically not super respectful of an environment. And I've heard so many horror stories over the years because we hire a lot of people and I hear them at orientation. But just being kind to one another, like smiling, saying good morning, like helping each other out, trying to help each other become better than you are, like sharpening each other, those sorts of characters, not talking behind each other's backs, like being on the same team, right? Eliminating all that like politics stuff that happens. And so just having that is a huge step up in the world of construction. Though the people who fail very quickly on that one is if they're out here and they start screaming at somebody else, which is normal in construction, but not here, right? Like you're just angry and upset at somebody, and yeah, you're not going to last even a day if that happens to you. The more subtle ones, things like vulnerability, that one. If you're not vulnerable on day one, we're not going to fire you. That's a journey that people go on. But every year we do an annual offsite meeting for each one of the teams. And the thing everyone talks about is 360-degree feedback. The way this works is we go around the room and each person shares with each other person eye to eye. So you actually look at each other and share with them what they're doing well, which feels great, but also what they're not doing well. And that's tough, right? A lot of people are terrified initially of that experience, but honestly, it's the biggest gift we can give to you, knowing exactly how you stand in the eyes of others. And so then being vulnerable and open and willing to have that discussion, be like, oh, you're right. do that? How can I improve?
Mm.
Those are the sorts of things we really look for as people grow in the organization.
The word I want to inject into this is love.
Mm.
Um, do you describe your the relations within your company as loving?
I would say so. There is, I don't know, with the people who are here and get it and really love what we're doing, like they're so into it, like they're so connected. To give you an example, my daughter gave Valentine's gifts. It was her idea to a bunch of the staff. And she's 5 or she's 4. She's just turning 5 today. And then the staff members like gave a little gift to her. There was uh, one of our employees last week. His wife was struggling like a sudden pain, and a few of the staff members found out, and so they went to his house and gave them like flowers and stuff. None of this was like told or had to be done or what have you. This is just the culture, the spirit of people. Another kind of fun thing that happens is friendship. When you bring great people together, like friendship happens. And there's like an event that goes on within our company, I swear, like once or twice a week. Everything from like just going out to dinner to going to the mall, going to a theme park, going to hunting and fishing and themed events. And there's a guy who literally created a video of what it would be like motorcycling around the North Shore of the Great Lakes in the United States here, motorcycling around these giant lakes. And he got a bunch of people together and they just went motorcycling together because that's what they love doing. Here's another example. The team found this poor guy that is elderly. I think he had a bit of a mental condition. He essentially hadn't left his house. If it felt like ever, I'm sure he had actually left, but his yard was no longer a lawn. It wasn't just overgrown. It was an entire forest, and his home was essentially falling apart. And so they were inspired to help this guy out, and they got others involved. There was no negative stigma. People didn't want to join, and they didn't have to. But about half the company showed up on a Saturday, and they worked to fix this guy's house up. It was so cool to see. So stuff like that happens all the time, and it's so cool. But it's the result of just having great people.
That's inspired by love.
Yeah.
Starting to wrap up, but Mike, if you have any rabbit holes that you'd like to uncover a little bit, feel free to shout. But your website also talks about a podcast coming up.
Yeah.
And also about little investment opportunities coming up. Can you, and the podcast is about becoming a unicorn. Can you share a little bit about the vision behind that? Like what are you hoping to experience yourself? I guess the roles will be flipped, because I guess you're going to be, more the host. What are you looking forward into that adventure?
Yeah. So becoming a unicorn is about the journey of small companies becoming billion-dollar enterprises. And a little selfishly, like I've always wanted a show that took a deep dive into that. And so we're just creating it, right? So we'll be breaking it into seasons. In the first season, we're going to open up our company as sort of the experiment and give you the full rundown, like what it's been like growing to that kind of status. And it's going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like we don't want to hold back about the bad times as well, because I think there's a lot of lesson things you can learn through that. But then in season 2 and beyond, we're hoping to take that into a deep dive of some of the other, probably more widely known companies out there. And so it should be a lot of fun.
Fun and educational, I imagine. And if you talk about vulnerability and transparency, like opening your kimono and sharing the good, bad, and ugly, that takes some bravery.
Yeah.
Why is this something that you wanted to do? Is it just more just personal curiosity? I can imagine. I think.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I've learned is that being very open, honest, and transparent with who you are and where you're at is always a good thing. You look at companies like Theranos, who is, grew to a very large size and then kind of fell apart. And one of the things they really struggle with internally is nobody could tell anybody anything. It was very segmented. It was very fearful kind of culture. And we've really tried to live by the model of like being very open and transparent. So even our employee survey results, which we do every 6 months, are completely open to the public. You can go online and actually see all the comments. Now, you can't tell who said it, but you can see all the comments, the good, bad, and the ugly, and there's some juicy ones in there about how people actually feel about what we're doing. But I never have wanted to become fake good. And I think a lot of companies want to project out the best side of themselves. And certainly we do that from time to time as well. But I really want to include everything. I want to be radically honest with where we're at, because that's how you grow the most. And so, yeah, I think it's a little bit to my core. I think it's going to be fun for the audience to see that, the good, bad, and the ugly. And then I think it will actually help us grow in return, because we will improve as a result of being honest with our failures.
Cool. And if people, I'll put this in the show notes as well, but if you want to go to norhart.com, norhart.com/podcast, you can sign up to get notified when that's published. Cool. And then there's also on the top, I want to ask about an invest. And if people are investing in great cultures, wow, this is something to consider. But can you give me a few words around what's happening behind norhart.com/invest?
Yeah. So one of the questions we asked ourselves this year is, can we become a bank? Now, turns out we could, but we can't invest entirely in ourselves. But I think it'd be interesting to eliminate the bank and let investors and let people not only earn the rate of return they would have earned from a bank, but also get the bank's profits, right? And so that's sort of the genesis of Norhart Invest. The first opportunities on there will be accounts that you can put money into, earn a rate of return, earn interest, and then you can take money back out, or you can lock it in for a period of time and earn even higher interest. Over time, I think we're going to expand that to maybe additional, more traditional offerings in real estate. But one of the things that drives me nuts about real estate too is that most people can't invest in real estate. Why is that? At least in America, you have to be an accredited investor, which means you have to have $1 million in assets, excluding your home, where you make $200,000 a year or more. For most people, that's unattainable. And so we're going through a bunch of additional like audits and SEC approvals in order to get permission so that anyone can invest in this platform. So that's the journey that we're on right now, is really to provide a space that everyday people can be involved in what we're doing.
Well, and I think I just heard some sort of background noise, and that was me. I think it was me filling out the form to get put on that list, because right when the page was updating, it made that weird noise. But what an incredible opportunity, because in order to invest in real estate, you need to have a certain size or class of asset in order to even play the game. And it sounds like you're a bit democratizing that a bit.
Exactly.
Which is exciting. So I didn't expect to come down this path, but in a way, sign me up. So I'm on your list. When that's possible, I'll definitely talk to my wife about that. She's in the interior design land, and therefore housing, investing in housing, and is a topic of discussion around here a lot. And so this is a great opportunity. So, Mike Keading, is there anything else on your mind that you'd like to share or ask before we wrap up? I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Talking about construction and apartments is one thing. That was what I was really curious about, but your style is amazing. Thank you for sharing the insights. Is there anything that left for you that you'd like to share?
Probably one thing that would be helpful for the audience is to don't give up. There's so much of our journey has been you fail, fail a little bit more, and then something comes through, right? So it's that energy and tenacity, because anytime you start something new, you're trying to change the world in some way, guess what? You're going to be terrible at it. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're a terrible person. That just means you're human, right? And to keep pressing forward in that, because at the end of the tunnel, you eventually get better and you can make meaningful improvement.
And if people have been watching this podcast from the beginning, they know that when I started, it wasn't that good. Just keeping going and learning every time. And I guess there's also, that leveling up and being a genuine human to coming back, that a genuine human is never perfect. There's always an evolution. There's always an opportunity. And for me, I've really been trying to, the discomforts sometimes that come with failure. I really see those as invitation to reflect and then just do it a little bit better in the next episode. And this has been great. So Mike Keading, thank you so much. I'll put in the show notes, the two links to norhart.com, norhart.com/podcast and /invest. Those are two things that people can engage with you, I guess from almost anywhere. Do you have to be a US citizen to invest? Fortunately for me, I am. So I have that passport, but is this limited to Americans, or have you not had that question
initially
before?
The answer is probably yes, although we are looking into that with our attorneys right now, because that's a common question we get. So we think Canada is going to be allowed, and maybe other countries if there is like a reciprocity with the United States SEC jurisdiction. So we have to figure some of that out yet.
So I guess if people are interested, don't hesitate to sign up, and then we'll figure it out on the way. So great. Thank you so much. And last message, I know this will not be published today, but very happy birthday to your daughter.
Oh, thank you. She's excited to be 5.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening. Download the Simplicity Toolkit from Ebullient.com to discover the power of the Simplicity Scan and Sprint. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player.